Welcome to the deep dive, where we try to make sense of all those internet rabbit holes we all fall into. And today, oh boy, we've got a weird one. We're going deep on the Texas Stiltwalker.
Ooh, yeah, spooky stuff.
Have you heard about this? I feel like it's been everywhere lately. All these grainy photos and videos popping up online and folks claiming to have seen this thing.
It's definitely captured the internet's attention, that's for sure. And, it taps into that primal fear we all have, the fear of the unknown, especially when you're talking about, like, rural Texas, a place that already has a reputation for being a little bit spooky.
Right, like everything's bigger in Texas, even the monsters, right? So we've got a ton of eyewitness accounts, forum discussions, articles, the whole 9 yards. But like with anything online, it's hard to know what's real and what's just internet hype.
Exactly. And that's kind of the mission of this deep dive, right? To sift through all the noise and see if we can get to the bottom of this thing. Is it real? Is it a hoax? Is it something else entirely? Who knows? But we're going to try to find out.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. What exactly are we talking about here? What is the Texas Stiltwalker?
Well, the most common description is a tall, lanky figure, often spotted in rural areas along those deserted roads you were talking about. And it's usually seen at night, of course, to add to the creepiness factor.
Makes sense. Darkness, isolation, strange figure. It's like a recipe for a horror movie.
Right. And then there's the whole stilt thing. Witnesses say it moves in this kind of jerky, unnatural way, like it's walking on stilts, which, is where the name comes from.
But if it's on stilts, shouldn't there be giant footprints or something? I haven't seen any evidence of that.
Yeah, that's one of the big mysteries here. There's no real physical evidence to speak of. No footprints, no shed skin, no, giant stilts lying around.
Okay, so right off the bat, we've got a problem. We have these sightings, these descriptions, but nothing concrete to back them up.
Right, and that makes it really difficult to approach this from a scientific perspective. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And so far, the evidence for the Texas Stiltwalker is pretty flimsy.
Okay, so let's talk about the theories. What are some of the explanations people have come up with for this thing?
Well, the most popular one, by far, is the cryptid theory.
The cryptid theory, as in Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster?
Exactly. People are saying it's some undiscovered creature lurking in the vastness of Texas.
I mean, I get it. Texas is huge. There's got to be plenty of room for a cryptid or two to hide out.
Right. And there's something inherently appealing about the idea of these unknown creatures existing alongside us. It speaks to that sense of wonder and mystery that we all have.
But like you said earlier, where's the evidence? If there's a giant stilt-walking creature roaming around Texas, you'd think we'd have found something by now.
Yeah, that's the big hole in the cryptid theory. It's all based on anecdotal evidence, eyewitness accounts, blurry photos, which, let's be honest, can be pretty unreliable.
Especially online, right? Anyone can post anything these days.
Exactly. It's the age of deepfakes and Photoshop. You never know what's real anymore.
So, if it's not a cryptid, what else could it be?
Well, there are a few other theories floating around. One that I find particularly interesting, although I'm not sure I believe it, is the government experiment gone wrong theory.
Oh, this is where we get in conspiracy theory territory. I love a good conspiracy theory.
It's definitely a juicy one. The idea is that the Stiltwalker is some kind of escaped experiment, maybe a genetically modified creature or a prototype for some secret military project.
Ooh, like a super soldier on stilts. Now that's an image.
Right. And the theory plays on our mistrust of the government, the idea that they're hiding things from us, conducting these shady experiments.
I mean, it's not entirely far-fetched. The government has been known to keep secrets, Area 51 and all that.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a kernel of truth there that makes this theory seem plausible to some people.
But again, where's the evidence? If there was a top-secret government project involving giant stilt walkers, you'd think there'd be some kind of leak or whistleblower or something.
You'd think so, right. But that's the nature of conspiracy theories. They thrive on the lack of evidence, the idea that the truth is out there, just beyond our grasp.
Okay, so we've got cryptids, government experiments. What else?
Well, there's the always popular hoax theory. The idea that this whole thing is just a big, elaborate prank.
Someone's out there in the Texas night on stilts, just messing with people.
It sounds crazy, but you can't rule it out. Think about all the viral hoaxes we've seen online. People love to create these elaborate stories, and sometimes they get out of control.
And with social media being what it is, it's easy to spread these stories far and wide.
Right. A few well-placed photos, some fake eyewitness accounts, and boom, you've got a viral sensation on your hands.
So how do we know what to believe?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We're bombarded with so much information these days, it's hard to know what's real and what's not. But I think it's important to approach everything with a healthy dose of skepticism. Question everything, look for evidence, and don't just blindly accept what you see online.
It's like that old saying, trust but verify.
Exactly. And when it comes to the Texas Stiltwalker, there's a lot to verify.
Okay, so we've got cryptids, government experiments, hoaxes. But there's one more theory we haven't discussed yet, and it's maybe the most obvious one.
You mean?
What if it's just someone on stilts? Like actually just someone on stilts?
Yeah, it seems too simple, right? But we have to consider it. I mean, people do walk on stilts. It's a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing. But why would someone be doing that in the middle of nowhere in the dark?
That's the question, isn't it? What would be the motivation? Is it just a prank? Is it some kind of performance art? Or is there something more to it?
It's a good question. One that we might not have the answer to. But I guess that's what keeps us coming back to these mysteries, the unknown, the unexplained. It's intriguing, isn't it?
It is. It's what makes us human, this desire to understand the world around us, to make sense of the things we don't know.
So we've got a lot to unpack here. Cryptids, government conspiracies, hoaxes, and the very real possibility that it's just someone with a really good pair of stilts.
And we haven't even gotten into the psychological and sociological aspects of this phenomenon. Why are we so drawn to these stories? What do they say about our culture, our fears, our hopes?
We've got a lot to dig into, but that's for next time.
Right. Stay tuned, deep divers. Things are about to get even weirder. Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
All right, so last time we left off with a whole bunch of theories about the Texas Stiltwalker and not a lot of answers.
Yeah, we were kind of swimming in speculation, but low on actual evidence.
Which is kind of frustrating, right? I mean, you see all these photos and videos online, you hear all these stories, but it's like, is any of it real?
It's tough to say for sure. And that's what we're trying to figure out here, right? Like, what can we actually trust?
Okay, so where do we even begin to try to separate fact from fiction?
Well, I think the first step is to look at the evidence itself. Like, what are people actually reporting? What do these photos and videos actually show?
Okay, so let's start with the eyewitness accounts. We've got a ton of those floating around online.
Yeah.
What are people saying they've seen?
Well, the descriptions are all over the place. You've got some people saying they saw a giant, like 10-foot tall figure with glowing red eyes and these like long, spindly limbs.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one. Super creepy.
Right, but then you've got other people describing something that sounds more like a lanky shadow with stilts that made this like clanking sound on the pavement.
So already we've got inconsistencies. Some people are seeing a monster, others are seeing something that sounds almost human.
Exactly. And that makes it really hard to pin down what we're actually dealing with here. Like, is it a creature? Is it a person? Is it something else entirely?
And could these inconsistencies just be because people are, exaggerating or misremembering what they saw? Like, it's dark, they're scared, their imaginations are running wild.
Oh, absolutely. Eyewitness testimony is notoriously unreliable, especially when it comes to something as unusual and potentially frightening as this.
Right, like if you're convinced you're about to be attacked by a giant stilt-walking monster, you're probably not going to be paying close attention to the details.
Exactly. Your adrenaline's pumping, your fight or flight response kicks in, you're not exactly in a calm, rational state of mind.
So even if someone genuinely believes they saw this Texas Stiltwalker, their account might not be accurate.
Right, and that's not even considering the possibility that some people might be deliberately fabricating stories.
You mean like making it all up? Why would anyone do that?
Well, there are a few reasons. Some people might do it for attention, for the notoriety of being the one who saw the Stiltwalker. Others might do it to prank their friends or to stir up some chaos online.
And let's be honest, the internet loves a good mystery.
Right. A story like this is like catnip for the online world. It's weird, it's creepy, it's got that element of the unknown. People can't resist clicking on it and sharing it.
So it's possible that some of these eyewitness accounts are completely made up.
It's definitely possible. And even if they're not completely fabricated, they're probably embellished, Details get exaggerated, stories get twisted, and suddenly you've got a legend being born.
Okay, so eyewitness accounts are shaky at best. What about the photos and videos? Surely those are more reliable, right?
Well, not necessarily. Most of the photos and videos that are circulating online are grainy, blurry, taken from a distance, usually at night.
Which is, prime time for Stiltwalker sightings, apparently.
Right. It's like this thing only comes out when the lighting is terrible for photography.
Convenient.
Very convenient. But even with these blurry images, people are convinced that they're seeing the Stiltwalker.
Why is that? Like, why are we so quick to believe what we see online, even when the evidence is so flimsy?
I think it's partly because our brains are wired to find patterns. Like we're constantly looking for meaning in the world around us, even when there isn't any.
So we see a blurry shape in the distance, and our brains automatically try to make it into something familiar, something that fits with our expectations.
Exactly. And in this case, our expectations are shaped by all the stories and rumors we've heard about the Stiltwalker, so we see what we want to see, even if it's not really there.
It's like those optical illusions where you see a face in a random pattern of clouds.
Exactly. Our brains are always trying to make sense of the world, even when the information is incomplete.
And then there's the whole social media aspect of this, right? Like how information spreads online, how stories get amplified and distorted.
Oh yeah, social media is like a giant echo chamber. Someone posts a blurry photo with a caption like, "Is this the Texas Stiltwalker?" And suddenly it's being shared and commented on by thousands of people.
And with each share, the story gets a little bit more exaggerated, a little bit more sensationalized.
Right, and because anyone can post anything online, it's hard to know what to believe. You don't know if the person who posted the photo is an eyewitness, a prankster, or someone with a completely different agenda.
It's like a game of telephone, but with way higher stakes.
Exactly, and the more a story gets shared, the more real it seems, even if it's completely made up.
So how do we navigate this world of online information? How do we know what to trust?
That's the challenge, isn't it? I think the key is to be skeptical, to question everything, and to look for evidence to support the claims being made.
Don't just take things at face value.
Right. Do your own research, look for multiple sources, and be aware of your own biases. Like, what do you want to believe and why?
It's like we have to be our own fact checkers now.
We do. It's the only way to survive in this digital age.
Okay, so we've talked about eyewitness accounts, we've talked about photos and videos, we talked about the role of social media. But what about the actual physical evidence? Like, has anyone found anything concrete to prove that the Texas Stiltwalker exists?
That's the thing. There isn't any. No footprints, no shed skin, no, giant stilts lying around.
But if this thing is as big and as heavy as people are saying, shouldn't it be leaving some kind of trace?
You would think so, right? And that's one of the biggest arguments against the cryptid theory.
Because if it's a real creature, it's got to be interacting with the environment somehow.
Exactly. It's got to be eating, sleeping, leaving waste. There should be some sign of its existence beyond just these fleeting glimpses and blurry photos.
So the lack of physical evidence is a big red flag.
It is. It suggests that maybe we're not dealing with a flesh and blood creature here. Maybe it's something else entirely.
Okay, so what are the alternatives? If it's not a cryptid, if it's not a government experiment, if it's not just a hoax, and what is it?
Well, that's the question we're going to try to answer in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, I'm intrigued. Stay tuned, folks. We're about to go even deeper into the mystery of the Texas Stiltwalker. All right, welcome back to the deep dive. So we've spent the last two parts going down the rabbit hole that is the Texas Stiltwalker.
We've had cryptids, government conspiracies, hoaxes, pretty much every weird theory you can think of.
And a lot of blurry photos and shaky videos.
Oh yeah, those are always fun. But after all that, after all the speculation and the internet sleuthing, we keep coming back to this one nagging question.
The simplest explanation.
What if it's just someone on stilts? Like a regular person with a pair of really tall stilts.
It seems almost too obvious, right? Like we've been searching for this elusive creature, this government experiment gone wrong, and all this time it could just be some guy with a hobby.
It's anticlimactic, isn't it? But sometimes the truth is simpler than we want it to be.
But here's the thing. Even if it is just someone on stilts, there's still some unanswered questions.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, why? Why would someone do this? Go out in the middle of nowhere, in the dark, on stilts, just to freak people out?
It's a good question. And I don't know if we have a good answer.
Maybe it's just a prank, right? Some people get their kicks out of scaring others.
Yeah, could be. Or maybe it's something more artistic, like a performance art piece, a way of challenging our perceptions, making us question what's real and what's not.
A kind of social commentary on our obsession with the unknown, our need to create monsters out of shadows.
Exactly. And in that sense, it doesn't really matter if it's a real creature or just someone on stilts. The effect is the same. We're captivated by the mystery, by the possibility of something beyond our understanding.
But okay, let's play devil's advocate for a second.
Yeah.
Let's say it is just someone on stilts. What kind of stilts are we talking about here?
Yeah.
I mean, some of these sightings describe figures that are like 8, 9, even 10 feet tall.
Yeah, those are some serious stilts. You'd need specialized equipment for that, probably custom made. And it's not easy to walk on stilts, especially at that height.
It takes a lot of skill, a lot of balance,
Yeah.
especially if you're doing it in the dark, on uneven terrain.
Right, it's not something you just pick up overnight. You'd need a lot of practice to be able to move around like that.
So maybe we need to be looking for a professional stilt walker, someone with the skills and the equipment to pull this off.
It's a possibility. Or maybe it's a group of people, a whole stilt walking troupe out there creating this elaborate hoax.
Now that's an image. A secret society of stilt walkers roaming the Texas countryside, freaking people out for kicks.
It sounds like something out of a movie, right? But hey, stranger things have happened.
All right, so we've explored all the theories. We've gone from cryptids to government experiments to performance art to a secret society of stilt walkers.
He's been all over the map.
And you know what? I still don't know what to believe.
And that's okay. I think the point of this deep dive wasn't necessarily to come up with a definitive answer. It was more about exploring the possibilities, questioning our assumptions, and thinking critically about the information we're presented with.
It's about being curious, skeptical, and open-minded all at the same time.
Exactly. And, even if we never find out the truth about the Texas Stiltwalker, I think the journey itself has been valuable. We've learned about folklore, about psychology, about the power of social media. We've challenged our own beliefs and had some fun along the way.
And that's what the deep dive is all about, right? Exploring the weird and wonderful mysteries of the world, even if those mysteries turn out to be just someone on stilts.
Sometimes the simplest explanation is the most satisfying.
So, what do you think, listeners? Have we convinced you one way or the other? Are you a believer, a skeptic, or are you still on the fence? Head over to our social media pages and let us know your thoughts. We love hearing from you. Until next time, keep those eyes peeled and those minds open. You never know what kind of strange and wonderful things you might find lurking out there in the world. Or maybe just someone on stilts.